Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Josh sent me a story that sent chills up my spine when I saw the headline. And, I'm an attorney in the state of Michigan. Been practicing law for almost 29 years now. And I've only handled one or two divorce cases. And I learned very quickly I didn't enjoy the work. Now, I know people who do, but it's extremely contentious. And the idea that, you want to get involved in litigation with parties who are so emotionally invested in their cases at the level that you're about to hear about is the stuff that makes you realize that, divorce law is not fun. This is out of the Times of UK. And again, like I said, Josh sent me a story. Judge rebukes lying pilot in 20-year divorce battle. A 20-year divorce battle. Can you imagine? You get married to somebody, and then you get divorced, and the divorce lasts 20 years. Marriages don't last that long. A judge is accused of retired British Airways pilot of misleading the court about his wealth in this, the latest battle in a 20-year divorce saga. Mr. Justice Mostyn said that Richard Wilmot and his lawyer had misled him over the true scale of his unencumbered liquid funds during a hearing that was dealing with costs incurred in arguably the longest-running divorce-related dispute in English legal history. Legal struggles between the pilot and his former wife started in 1999. And in 2018, Wilmot was ordered to pay about £600,000 in child maintenance for a daughter that he denied was his, despite a DNA test proving that indeed she was. Now, that's science. Last October, an increasingly exasperated justice ordered the former pilot to stop harassing his ex-wife and her lawyers. The judge invoked anti-harassment laws to compel the man to stop pestering his ex-wife and her legal team with a torrent of emails. He also imposed a general civil restraint order banning court applications without permission. So in other words, in America, they've got a thing called being called a vexatious filer or a vexatious litigant. And it means that you just file stuff just to annoy or bother the other side or the court. And if you get that order against you, it actually puts in an extra hoop you have to jump through. And it'll actually say that the court clerk will be ordered to stop accepting anything you file unless it is an application asking for permission to file it in the first place. So you actually got to file a thing saying, may I please file something? The clerk will take that and show it to the judge, and the judge says, no, you can't file it. And, whether that'll work or not is another thing altogether. But that's the point. Yesterday, after a hearing held over Zoom, due to recent events in the news, the judge said that his ruling on costs in October was faulty because the man and his lawyer had provided inaccurate information, which is a dangerous thing to do to a court. Inaccurate is another way of saying that it was dishonest or deceptive, and it is clear I was misled about the scale and liquidity of the funds, the judge said. He went on to exonerate Mr. Wilmot's lawyer from knowingly misleading, saying that he should have been instructed by the husband what the true position was. So he's not blaming the lawyer. He thinks that the client lied to the lawyer. However, the judge added that this is not an acceptable way of conducting litigation and went on to reject the husband's challenge to the earlier ruling ordering him to pay nearly £70,000 to cover his ex-wife's legal bills. And of course, I mean the ex-husband. The justice also penalized the husband for his misconduct in litigation by awarding indemnity costs, which adds a sum to account for what judges view as poor behavior during litigation. At the hearing in October, the justice bemoaned the length of this case. He pointed out that there had been significant high court landmarks in 2013, 2014, 2016, and 2018, in addition to a Court of Appeal ruling in 2017. These judgments tell some, but by no means all, of the story of the ill-fated marriage of the parties, which ended in 1999, when divorce proceedings began in the Canterbury County Court. There, they divorced like it was 1999. The justice said, he added that since there have been dozens of hearings before numerous judges, many of whom have now retired and some have now passed away. The ex-husband had argued that the daughter was fathered by the ex-wife's lover that she was having an affair with before they divorced. But of course, scientists say otherwise. The justice has described the case as one of the worst examples of vexatious litigation misconduct seen in the English family courts. Vexatious litigation. So, as of right now, the ex-husband is 63 and the ex-wife is 53. But all of this started when they were 43 and 33 respectively. Yes, I can do math. I can do numbers. So the question is, and we don't have the answer, and I wish we did, but I'm curious to know how long they were married, because it's highly likely that this divorce lasted longer than the marriage. And that's even if the marriage lasted a good 19 years. But again, I don't know the answer to that. But I have talked before about, in fact, I think I did a video on one of the worst cases in Michigan history, just in terms of how complicated and out of control it became, how long the docket entries were. Just, the list of what had happened in court was pages and pages deep. Both sides burned through attorneys. Judges were getting sick of it. Everyone hated everybody. But the problem is that that's a large-scale version of what happens in almost, well, not every case, but quite a few cases. And so, like I said, I know guys and gals who do divorce work. I don't. And I have clients who get very, very wound up and are very, very upset by what's happened to them. And I understand that. But the few times that I've been involved in divorce cases or simply talk to people about divorces, you hear people speaking with a different level of dislike for the other side. And it's difficult for some people to be rational when trying to monetize, for instance, damages. So you get injured in a non-monetary way. In other words, it's not a business deal like, you're something happens to you and you get your leg broken. Your leg is broken, okay? What's that worth? How do you put a dollar sign on that? You have to. I mean, a jury would have to if you filed a lawsuit, or an insurance company's going to pay you some money. They're going to cut a check with a dollar sign. Boom, a check. Numbers and a dollar sign. How do you monetize that? And despite the fact that most people go, that's a horrible, horrible thing to have to do. And I just picked one injury at random. There's worse injuries. But the point simply is that you go, yeah, that would be an extremely difficult thing to do. How would you monetize those damages? How would you reduce that to numbers that I could live with? It's hard, but it's still infinitely easier than ending a marriage like this, where the parties obviously hate each other, or at least one of them hates the other to the point where it's going to cause the hatred to seep into the courtroom. And so, the attorneys out there who handle these cases, my hat's off to them. But the judges who have to put up with it, my hat's off to them also. And, one of the things is that, we've talked about this before, judges are required to maintain a certain level of decorum, meaning that they have to behave professionally. They've always got to, on the bench, they've got to be doing their job right. And most of them get it right. I've told stories about judges that didn't, and some judges have gotten in trouble for that. But can you imagine if you're the judge in the case of a divorce where the parties are still in front of you 20 years later fighting over this kind of stuff? And there's a whole bunch of different notions I could talk about here. But one of them simply is this, that there are people I've met who talk about an ex with such anger and hatred and vitriol that I am surprised when they say, oh, how long have you been divorced? And they go, 18 years, 15 years. And I'm like, wow, and it's still that powerful. That's still, and everyone's entitled to their emotions. You're entitled to your feelings. Great. But you should ask yourself at some point in time, how much is it benefiting me? How much of it is helping me for me to be carrying this around? Because that's what you're doing. There should come a time, I would think, where it might be, well, let's put it this way. You should at least take an inventory and ask yourself, would I be better off just moving on with my life now? In other words, couldn't these parties 10 years ago have just resolved it and just gone their separate ways? Why not? And so when I hear about it, like I said, when somebody's had a marriage that's this long, but they're thinking about it this long after the fact, you know, I'm not sure. Therapy, counseling, I don't know. But when I hear about a 20-year, like I said, just the headline gave me the chills. Judge rebukes lying pilot in 20-year divorce battle out of England. There you go. Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I'm not so good with the advice. Can I interest you in a sarcastic comment?